There are still places on Earth where every shadow may hide a story science has never fully understood. Today, we are entering one of those worlds, a rainforest shaped by millions of years of isolation, rain, and evolution. Our mission is not to conquer this wilderness. It is to understand what survives inside it and why that survival matters. In a rainforest, life does not begin. For the next hour, we will follow researchers deep into the forest in search of creatures rarely seen by human eyes. Every piece of equipment has a purpose: observation, measurement, photography, navigation, and, above all, minimal disturbance. For the first step, every location, weather condition, and observation is recorded. Small details can later become important evidence. Within minutes, the outside world disappears. Oh, no roots? The forest immediately reminds us that visitors are noticed. Leeches detect movement, warmth, and vibrations long before we notice them. Annoying to us, perhaps, but here even a tiny parasite participates in a much larger ecological system. Streams like this are highways for nutrients and refuge for animals whose entire lives may occur within only a few hundred meters. Some freshwater species become isolated within individual river systems, allowing populations to evolve in remarkable ways. For amphibians, moisture is survival. Their permeable skin connects them directly to changes in temperature, water, and pollution. To a scientist, even the pattern around an eye may help distinguish one population from another. A single mature rainforest tree can support an entire vertical neighborhood of other organisms. Some of the forest's greatest engineers are smaller than a fingernail. Termites break down tough plant material, helping return nutrients to soil that would otherwise remain locked inside wood. Nothing here is truly wasted. Death becomes food, food becomes soil, and soil becomes forest again. This cycle has repeated for thousands of generations, producing complexity that scientists are still working to catalog. Discovery rarely begins with a dramatic moment. More often, it begins with careful attention. A shape, color, behavior, or body structure that appears slightly different can become the beginning of a scientific question. Photographs preserve details that memory cannot: proportions, markings, habitat, and coloration. But rainforest fieldwork is controlled by weather. A clear morning can become heavy rain in minutes. For the forest, rain is not an interruption. It is the force around which nearly everything is designed.
Keep it dry. The storm's coming.
I know, I'm trying. Check the batteries in the pouch.
All right, hold tight.
Even a spider's web changes with the weather, becoming both heavier and more visible. Minutes after the storm, repair begins. Millipedes are quiet recyclers, processing decaying plant matter and helping maintain the forest floor. Viewed closely, what seems ordinary becomes almost mechanical in its precision. Slow movement can be an advantage when food is predictable and energy must be conserved. Every animal experiences this forest through a different combination of senses. Deeper inside, daylight weakens, the temperature changes, humidity rises, the community of species changes with it. For insects, sunlight can provide warmth, navigation cues, and opportunities to feed. Patterns that appear beautiful to us may function as camouflage, warning, recognition, or deception. Then, in a second, it disappears into green. To find secretive animals, Scientists learn to search places most people ignore. Under one piece of dead wood, a nocturnal predator has spent the daylight hidden from heat and danger. Good fieldwork is observation first. Handling is avoided unless there is a clear scientific reason. Scorpions are ancient survivors, equipped with sensory structures capable of detecting tiny vibrations through the ground. We return its shelter exactly as we found it. Elevation changes everything: temperature, moisture, wind, vegetation, and sometimes the species themselves. From above, the forest appears endless. On a map, however, its boundaries can be painfully clear. Where continuous habitat becomes fragmented, isolated populations may lose the connections that once sustained them. Conservation is therefore not simply about protecting individual animals. It is about preserving functioning landscapes. Our first objective lies near a shaded stream where researchers previously recorded unusual amphibian activity. The search becomes slower now. Every stone must be lifted carefully and replaced exactly. Barely larger than a fingernail. Its size makes identification difficult. Photographs alone may not answer every question. Measurements help compare individuals while minimizing stress. Within seconds, it returns to the world it understands far better than we ever will. Above the stream, another clue. Eggs positioned where future rainfall may carry hatchlings toward water. Behavior and reproductive strategy can sometimes reveal as much as anatomy. Afternoon is disappearing, but our most productive hours may still be ahead. Before nightfall, equipment must be reorganized for nocturnal work. At night, a different rainforest wakes. Light must be controlled carefully. Too much illumination can alter animal behavior. As daylight drains from the canopy, sound begins to replace sight. Thousands of voices announce the beginning of the night shift. Every reflective eye, moving leaf, or broken silhouette becomes a possibility. The first encounter is a gecko, perfectly adapted to a world of vertical surfaces. Its toes rely on microscopic structures that generate remarkable adhesion without glue. It is gone. Some daytime animals simply hide and wait. Others survive by becoming visually indistinguishable from the vegetation around them. Camouflage is not just coloration. Shape, posture, and movement all contribute to the illusion. The calls lead us toward a shallow pool formed by recent rain. To humans, this may look like a puddle. To amphibians, it can become a nursery. Each species produces its own acoustic signature, allowing mates to find one another in darkness. A conversation is unfolding across the water. The same water attracts insects, predators, larvae, and countless microorganisms. Below the surface, the next generation of aerial hunters already lives as aquatic predators. Tadpoles transform the energy of algae into future frogs, linking aquatic and terrestrial food webs. Audio recordings allow scientists to compare calls long after the expedition ends. Sometimes a voice is the first evidence that an unfamiliar population exists. Then we hear something different. The rhythm is unfamiliar to the team.
Quiet. Triangulate the call.
Copy. Getting a fix. Somewhere within these leaves is the source. Its appearance raises questions, but appearance alone cannot establish whether it represents a distinct species. The correct response to an unusual animal is not immediate declaration. It is documentation. Field notebook records habitat, elevation, temperature, and exact time. Where it lives may prove just as important as what it looks like. For now, the animal remains exactly what it was before we arrived: a living, unanswered question. That uncertainty is part of science. Discovery is not a moment. It is a process of testing possibilities until evidence supports one explanation better than another. Back at camp, field images are compared with reference material. Small differences may be individual variation, sexual variation, age, or something scientifically important. By morning, the forest has rewritten itself. Every surface carries water. Today we climb toward a different ecological zone. Only a few hundred meters of elevation can separate one microclimate from another. Cloud forests often concentrate moisture around leaves, branches, and epiphytes. For very small organisms, a moss patch can be an entire landscape. Scale changes everything. Visibility collapses as cloud enters the trees themselves. This feels less like walking through weather and more like walking inside a cloud. Hidden within the mist is another specialist. For a web-building spider, silk is not only a trap, it is an extension of the senses. A vibration travels faster than vision could respond. Web structure itself can provide clues to behavior and identification. For a few seconds, moisture reveals a structure usually almost invisible. The forest opens into a harsher world up here.
Look at the view. It's breathtaking. What's next?
We follow the ridge. Let's go. Wind, temperature, and exposure create conditions very different from the valley floor. Even here, life finds small pockets of opportunity. And where plants survive, animals often follow. Rock habitats can isolate tiny populations for generations. A lizard appears, almost the same color as the rock. Its camouflage makes detection difficult, even from only a few meters away. For a moment, patience becomes speed. predator and prey are linked by milliseconds. But mountain weather is already changing again. Going down may be more dangerous than climbing up. Field science is also physical work. A trail that was dry 2 hours ago now carries running water. The rainforest changes minute by minute. Then the expedition reaches a reminder that wilderness is never completely beyond human influence. When habitat is altered, species with tiny ranges may have nowhere else to go. For widespread animals, habitat loss is dangerous. For highly localized species, it can be catastrophic. Corridors allow movement between populations that would otherwise become isolated. Connectivity is one of conservation biology's most important ideas. Large animals leave clues, even when they remain invisible. Tracks can reveal presence without a direct encounter. A camera trap may remain here for weeks, watching when no researcher is present. Later, these silent observers may reveal species that avoid people completely. For secretive mammals, remote cameras can transform our understanding of distribution. Every image receives a date, time, location, and identification. Thousands of empty frames may surround a single valuable record. But sometimes one photograph justifies weeks of waiting. Fieldwork generates questions. The laboratory helps test them. Here, visual observations become measurable evidence. When ethically obtained specimens are available, anatomy can reveal structures impossible to study from photographs alone. Differences measured in fractions of a millimeter may carry taxonomic importance. A scientific record must be reproducible by other researchers. Discovery depends on organized information, not excitement alone. An unusual specimen must be compared with everything already known to resemble it. A difference is meaningful only when scientists understand the range of normal variation. Sometimes that comparison requires access to collections thousands of kilometers away. Natural history collections preserve biological history across generations. A specimen collected decades ago can answer a question nobody knew to ask at the time. Names, locations, dates, and anatomy create a bridge between past and present research. Only after detailed comparison can a claim of novelty become stronger. But while taxonomy moves carefully, threats to habitat often move quickly. Understanding life is only half of this story. Protecting it is the other half. Conservation cannot succeed by treating nearby communities as outsiders. People living closest to biodiversity also live closest to its costs and responsibilities. The most durable protection often begins with conversation. We believe our approach can benefit. Residents learn which animals are harmless, which require caution, and which may need protection. Education turns unfamiliar creatures into recognizable neighbors. Knowledge can reduce unnecessary killing while improving human safety at the same time. Local knowledge can also guide scientists toward seasonal water sources and wildlife corridors. Scientific training and lived experience become stronger when combined. A mark that researchers might overlook can be immediately obvious to someone who has known this forest for decades. The forest leaves messages everywhere. Protection also requires presence. Patrols can deter illegal collection, report habitat damage, and provide early warning of threats. When conservation creates skilled local employment, protecting wildlife can support people as well. Modern conservation combines boots on the ground with digital records. A protected forest is not protected by a line on paper alone. Some animals need protection at a scale so small that a single patch of ground may matter. For burrowing spiders, destroying the shelter can mean destroying years of work. To many people, fear comes first. To a biologist, anatomy, behavior, and ecological role come first. It is not searching for humans. It is waiting for the small animals that form its natural diet. The ground itself becomes information. A burst of speed ends a long period of stillness. Then the forest becomes quiet again. Burrow architecture can sometimes help researchers understand habitat preference. One burrow becomes several. A population begins to emerge from the data. Each observation is geo-referenced without publicly revealing sensitive locations. For vulnerable species, information itself must sometimes be protected. Rare animals can become targets simply because rarity increases demand. When collectors remove animals from tiny populations, the damage may be difficult to reverse. A missing animal is not merely an empty space. It can represent lost reproduction, lost genetics, and lost ecological function. Protection requires rapid response. It also requires changing the idea that rare wildlife belongs in private collections. The strongest defense may begin with the next generation.
That's a beautiful drawing you all did so well.
Fear can become curiosity. Curiosity can become knowledge. And knowledge can become stewardship.
You maths wise man.
Conservation becomes personal when people can recognize the life around them. The rainforest is not one story. Tonight, we return deeper than before. Different tools reveal different dimensions of the same habitat. Thermal imaging helps detect warm-bodied animals hidden by darkness, though dense leaves still create obstacles. Visibility is only a few meters. A giant moth becomes our first encounter. Its wings are covered with microscopic scales that create extraordinary color and texture. Beauty in this forest often exists without an audience. Then something larger moves above us. We see only a silhouette. Technology confirms what our eyes cannot. Not every encounter ends with a name. A hollow trunk can shelter generations of animals. A bat launches into the night. Bats pollinate plants, disperse seeds, and consume enormous numbers of insects. Pale colors and strong scents can attract pollinators after sunset. A tiny transfer of pollen may determine whether a plant reproduces. One flight connects two organisms. And every opportunity creates another. Then the forest changes again. For amphibian surveys, rain can be exactly what we need.
Found something.
Within minutes, the forest floor seems alive. Moisture allows many amphibians to move safely across exposed surfaces. Different voices overlap. Different species divide the habitat by height, water, temperature, and breeding strategy. The survey becomes a race to document activity while conditions remain perfect. Environmental data give context to every observation. Then another animal stops the entire team. It does not match anything we have seen tonight. But again, uncertainty comes before excitement. Every visible feature is recorded. If its call can be connected confidently to this individual, the acoustic record becomes another line of evidence. Modern field methods can sometimes gather information while minimizing contact. The animal returns to the rain. Whether familiar or scientifically unusual, finding it alive is enough to make the night memorable. Fieldwork rarely resembles the clean photographs published later. There are wet clothes, aching legs, insects, missed meals, and constant uncertainty. And still, nobody wants to turn back yet. Because the forest always has one more reason to continue. The call comes from a patch almost impossible to enter. Sometimes the least damaging decision is to stay out. Evidence does not always require a sighting. Tomorrow, the sound can be compared against known recordings. After nearly an entire night outside, daylight begins to return. One forest. Two completely different worlds, separated only by light. Science also requires knowing when exhaustion becomes dangerous. Sound can be measured by frequency, duration, interval, and pattern. Calls that sound similar to us may reveal clear differences when visualized. The correct scientific answer is sometimes simply, "We do not know yet." That sentence is not failure. It is the beginning of research. The mountain stands eternal, watching over the forest. Genetic analysis can reveal relationships hidden beneath similar appearances. But DNA does not replace field observation. It adds another layer. Researchers compare genetic similarity to estimate evolutionary relationships. Every branch on a scientific tree ultimately represents living history. Rivers divide habitats, connect habitats, and reshape them. Flooded roots create shelter for fish, crustaceans, insects, and juvenile animals. Some species may spend their entire evolutionary history inside one drainage basin. Video allows behavior to be documented without capture. Behavior provides another dimension of identity. Above water, aerial predators follow the same river corridor. Its adult life in the air began underwater. Rainforest rivers carry not only water, but memory, sediment, nutrients, seeds, and organisms. At waterfalls, barriers can isolate aquatic populations even within the same stream. Some species specialize in conditions that would sweep others away. Body shape. Habitat is measured alongside its inhabitants. Temperature and oxygen help explain where aquatic species can survive. Even water can contain biological traces. Environmental DNA can sometimes reveal organisms from genetic material they leave behind. A few liters of water may contain clues from an entire community. After hours of searching, the expedition pauses. In places this rich, even rest becomes observation. A movement above us. Birds are often easier to hear than see in dense forest. Fruit-eating birds can carry seeds far from the parent tree. The next forest may begin inside a bird. What is not carried away becomes food here. Nothing remains unused for long. Decomposition begins almost immediately. A rainforest grows upward because countless organisms work downward. By late afternoon, we start back toward camp. The forest looks different now, not because it changed, but because we notice more. A leaf is habitat, a puddle is nursery, a hollow tree is shelter, a sound is evidence. Human beings occupy almost none of the visual frame, and that is exactly the point. Each survey adds another small piece to a much larger picture. Patterns begin to emerge only after many visits. Season changes which animals are active, where water remains, and when breeding occurs. One expedition can never capture the entire system. Long-term monitoring turns snapshots into trends. When the same locations are monitored repeatedly, change becomes measurable. A decline in detections may raise concern, but researchers must test whether the pattern is real. Population science demands caution because many factors can affect observations. Not every disturbance is human. Forests also experience storms, landslides, droughts, and natural succession. Some disturbance creates opportunity. Different species arrive. The forest begins rebuilding itself. Even a fallen giant continues supporting life for years. And eventually, foundation. On our final major survey, we return to the lowest, warmest section of the forest. This zone contains dense leaf litter, where reptiles often remain hidden.
A snake appears ahead.
Oh, I see it. Let's give it space. Whether venomous or harmless, the safest approach is the same: space, calm, and respect. The animal wants an escape route, not confrontation. A record does not require touching wildlife. Sometimes the animal leaves evidence behind voluntarily. Shed skin can reveal scale patterns and sometimes provide genetic material. Further ahead, the forest floor changes again. Water. Some amphibians exploit these tiny reservoirs. Reproduction can depend on habitats small enough to fit in a human hand. Protecting biodiversity, therefore, means protecting details. One tiny nursery becomes an entire landscape of nurseries. Then, another sound draws our attention. A colony occupies a hollow trunk. One tree can produce thousands of opportunities for insects, birds, and mammals. And when flowering ends, another cycle begins. Pollination becomes fruit. Fruit becomes food. Food becomes dispersal. And dispersal becomes possibility. A forest continues through countless successful beginnings. Some beginnings survive for centuries. This tree is not only an organism, it is architecture. At the roots, shelter. Higher, gardens. Above them, nurseries. And at the top, sunlight captured by thousands of leaves. Energy enters the ecosystem here as light. Eventually, that energy returns to soil. The cycle closes only to begin again. Standing here, the idea of an isolated species begins to feel incomplete. Nothing survives alone. Predators depend on prey. Plants depend on pollinators. Forests depend on decomposers. Conservation, therefore, protects relationships, not just names on a list. Our expedition is ending. Hundreds of observations now need verification. Field data are duplicated immediately. Losing information could mean losing weeks of work. Recordings become searchable evidence. Photographs become records. Handwritten notes become permanent archives. And unanswered questions become research projects. If evidence eventually supports recognition of a distinct species, the findings must be described clearly enough for others to evaluate. Measurements, photographs, diagnostic characters, habitat, and comparisons all matter. Claims publication begins another stage of scrutiny. Independent specialists examine the evidence and identify weaknesses. Only after evidence survives review does a scientific name enter formal literature. The name is important, but the animal existed long before we recognized it. Science does not create a species. It creates a language through which people can understand and protect it. Documentation can strengthen conservation planning by showing what lives where.
Evidence can influence habitat assessments, management priorities, and future surveys.
This specific area, near the river, but successful protection require more than scientists and officials. It needs the people who live here. Communities understand the landscape at a daily scale. Rangers understand pressure points. Teachers shape long-term attitudes. And students inherit whatever survives. Conservation works best when knowledge moves in every direction. Protection can also include restoring damaged edges with appropriate native vegetation. Restoration is slow work. A planted tree is only a beginning. It must survive drought, storms, competition, and years of growth. Over time, structure returns. Then movement returns. Interactions return. And eventually, some of the forest's smallest residents may return as well. There is no single heroic moment in conservation. There are thousands of ordinary actions repeated for years. This plant provides a crucial part of the ecosystem. A patrol completed. Welcome! Today, we'll learn about some incredible jungle animals. Look at the beautiful macaw and the playful monkey. Aren't they fascinating? A choice not to kill something unfamiliar. A tree kept alive. Together, these actions become protection. Before we leave, there is one last place to visit. We return to the pool from our first night. The water level has risen after several days of rain. The chorus is stronger now. And there it is. Look at it. Absolutely incredible. The same pattern. The same habitat. Another observation. Then something even more useful. A second individual. What looked like one mysterious animal may represent a small local population. Still, no conclusions tonight. Science will take its time. The forest has already waited far longer. After days inside this rainforest, we finally begin the journey home. The path is the same. Our perception of it is not. Even the creatures that once felt like obstacles now seem like part of the story. The recyclers. The indicators. The predators. The pollinators. The seed carriers. The water connecting them all. The deeper lesson is not that untouched forests contain monsters or mysteries. It is that they contain relationships we may lose before we fully understand them. A notebook filled with observations may seem small compared with millions of trees. Pages turn showing sketches and measurements. But knowledge accumulates. One record joins another. Patterns emerge. questions become hypotheses. Hypotheses meet evidence. Knowledge becomes action. And action can become survival. Sometimes the future of an ecosystem is represented by something small enough to sit on one leaf. Something feared. Something overlooked. Biodiversity is the sum of all these lives and all the connections between them. Clean water, stable soil, food, medicine, climate regulation, inspiration. But perhaps life also deserves protection because it has its own history, independent of our usefulness. This animal does not need to know its scientific name to belong here. The spider does not understand rarity. The bird does not understand conservation policy. Life simply continues whenever conditions allow it. Our responsibility begins when our choices determine whether those conditions remain. Habitats can be defended. You see? They're not scary, just misunderstood.
It's so cute.
Yes, fear can be replaced with knowledge. Unknown species can be documented here, based on the energy readings. And animals can return when given enough space and time. This is why exploration matters, not to collect trophies from the unknown, but to understand what must remain alive. Somewhere beneath these trees are animals no camera has recorded tonight. Some may already be known to local people, but unknown to formal science. Others may remain completely undocumented. Their greatest protection is not our curiosity alone. It is the survival of the habitat around them. Protect the forest, and countless stories still have a chance to continue. Because the most extraordinary discovery may not be finding a species nobody has seen before. And it may be realizing how much life was already here.